Hey everyone, Art Burns here. Hope you're all doing well today. I hope you're meeting the day with presence, acceptance, and compassion. And in doing this, I hope that that's keeping you in a happy place, in a place that's not overwhelmed, and that is resilient to the many, many curveballs that life can throw to us at any given moment, and often without warning. And so I hope that's true for you. And if it's not, I hope that I can help you to instill that in your life. Right, and because that's the idea here, right? The more that we can instill these practices that I talk about here, the mindfulness practices, and the ability to, the trait and the skill of just, kind of automatically and very capably, just pay attention to what's happening as it's happening, without the judgment that our mind is tends to gravitate towards. When we can do this, we will end up living in presence, acceptance, and compassion. And when we can do that, again, that's where resilience is. That's where our happiness is. That's where the power that we have to live our lives on our terms comes from. And so I hope that these videos that I send you every day, and that you're listening to on the podcast or watching here on YouTube, I hope that you're getting a sense of how you can live with presence, acceptance, and compassion. And so one of the most effective tools that I've ever learned in my mindfulness practices, or one of the most powerful concepts that I learned during my mindfulness practice, and the concept that has helped me the most, right, in my life, whether you want to talk about my parenting, my work in my my professional career, or anything else that I've done, right, the thing that is the most impactful is the power of pausing. Okay, just the ability to just pause. Now, this might sound like a little funny to most people, right? Because pausing is not intuitive to our modern society here in the Western world, right? We are rewarded for doing things very quickly. We're somebody with a quick sense of humor is somebody who we think they're smart, right? Like people who can come up with answers for things and take quick action. These are the things that we reward in our society, right? And to be sure, the relentless information stream that we're exposed to every single day. You watch some of the news shows, and it's just people talking and talking and talking. Everything's happening so quickly. Television commercials, they cram so much into like 15 seconds, right? That it's like so much information. There's the idea here, the point that I'm making is that pausing is not something that is intuitive at all in our society, but at the same time, pausing is one of the most powerful things we can do for ourselves, right? When we pause, what we're doing is we're putting a little bit of space in between whatever it is that we're experiencing and our response to that experience, right? There's actually a really famous psychologist named Viktor Frankl. Many of you may have heard of him. He's actually a Holocaust survivor and a psychologist, modern psychologist. And he has a quote that says, in between our stimulus and our response there's a space, right? And in that space is the power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom, right? And so what Viktor Frankl is saying there is that when we allow ourselves to have that space, or when we honor that space that's in between what we experience and how we respond to it, in that space is the power that we have to choose a response that serves us. Right, and most of the time, what happens is with unfortunately with a lot of reactions, we see something that we've done, and we're looking back on it. We're saying, "Gosh, I wish I had handled that differently." Right. So the pause is the ability to get some space in the front end so that you can say, "Okay, let me weigh out what I want to say here," right? And essentially what you're doing is, if you can, train yourself to pause a little bit before you say something to your children, before you say something to a coworker, before you say something to a friend or a spouse, right? If you can put a little pause in there, right, what you're doing is you're giving yourself the opportunity to go from reaction to response. Right? Now, reaction is something that happens automatically, very quickly, no thought, just do, right? A response is something that is weighed out. You know, it's something that is kind of, you know, part of the, you know, you process it a little bit more, right? And most of the time when you're responding to things, that means that you're coming at it from a place of calculation and a place of again, weighing out the different, you know, outcomes that might happen. Of course, we're not thinking about outcomes when we're in mindfulness, but just kind of considering how what you're about to say, what you're about to do is going to impact others around you. And when you do that, you know, you are going to, more often than not, you're going to make a decision that, again, will not come back to be something, you know, harmful to you or harmful to others, right? And that's the beauty, right? And that's where we can, you know, exercise, you know, presence, acceptance, and compassion, right? Because when we're present, right, when we pause, that means that we're present. Right? We're not putting ourselves into the future. We're not kind of thinking like we have to catch up to something, right? We're present. When we accept, you know, when we're practicing acceptance, we're practicing the idea that it's okay to be a little bit slower. You know, it's okay to take a couple of beats and consider what I'm going to say next, right? And when we're practicing compassion, we're concerning ourselves with the well-being of others, which means that we're not going to say something that's going to be hurtful, you know, accidentally, or hurtful, you know, in a neglectful way, right? We're going to consider someone else's feelings before we speak, right? And so when you put all this together, again, what happens is you're going to wind up, you know, making decisions and having responses to the different situations and experiences of your life that are going to serve you and serve those around you. Okay, and that's really what this is all about. Now, there's a great practice I want to share with you today. Okay, this is something that I picked up from. It's a pretty common practice, but I love the way it's explained by the folks over at Google, right? Who have the mindfulness program at Google. It's called Search Inside Yourself, right? And so Meng Tan, I think it was actually one of his students who came up with this. But it's a practice that helps you to you know, kind of, you know, create a habit out of this pausing, right? And to sort of, you know, go through a couple of steps to kind of cultivate this sense, the idea of what I'm talking about here, which is, again, going from a reaction to a response, right? So the practice is called SBNRR, and the folks at Google came up with this mnemonic for that acronym. The acronym stands for Stop, Breathe, Notice, Reflect, Respond, okay? But the way you can remember it is Siberian North Railroad. I just love that. The way they explain it there is that well, you're trying to cool off. You know, you're trying to cool your jets here. So what's a cooler place than Siberia, right? So Siberian North Railroad. Stop, breathe, notice, reflect, respond. Let me walk you through it very quickly because we have a couple minutes here. Again, the key is, if you're not going to do any other step, the first step is the key, right? Which is just to stop, to give yourself a pause, right? So instead of saying the thing that comes to your mind, instead of doing the thing that comes to your mind, give yourself a minute, not even a minute, give yourself just a couple of beats, just a couple of just pause for just a moment, right? While you're pausing, breathe. Okay, now, of course, you never stop breathing, right? So it's not like you have to do so, you have to push a button to make yourself breathe or anything like that. But what I mean by this is notice your breath, right? Just take 2 or 3 mindful breaths, meaning you're just paying attention to the breath as you're breathing, right? So 1, 2, 3, right? And in that time that you're breathing, or right after you take those 2 or 3 breaths, right, notice. What you want to notice now is what's happening in your body, right? Do you feel, you know, a tension? Do you feel a heat? Do you feel a tingling somewhere? Do you feel, you know, a pain, like a headache? Or do you feel yourself short of breath? Do you feel yourself, what do you feel, right? Do you feel like a scratchy throat, like a little catch in your throat, right? These are all signs that you're feeling stress. You're in the stress response, right? Now reflect. Why is it that you're feeling this, right? Like, what is it about this situation that you're feeling, right? Like, is this person, you know, did somebody ask you a question that triggered you? You know, did one of your children do something that triggered you? You know, Come on, be honest, right? Our children do things all the time that trigger us, right? So what happened, right? Like, reflect on what's going on here exactly, right? Is it something that somebody did, or is it that you're thinking about what somebody did? Like, is it on you or is it on them, right? Like that kind of sort of thing. And again, this doesn't have to take like 10 minutes, right? It can all be done within a 10-second span of time, right? You just want to kind of just notice the feelings in your body, reflect on what is actually happening, right? So this, my child just knocked over a bowl of cereal on the floor, and I have to clean it up, and that's made me blank, right? You fill in the blank, right? Just reflecting on that. Now you're in the space for that last R, right? Now you can respond, right? Now you've given yourself that pause, that time to just sit there and say, okay, let me take a couple of breaths, notice what I'm feeling, reflect on why I feel I'm feeling that, and now I can say, okay, my child, I've told you many times, I really want you to be more careful with the cereal. I know it was a mistake, but we have to just be more careful, okay? Because we just, whatever, right? And now you can just clean it up without getting into the emotional overwhelm and the emotional reactivity, right? Because the instinct is to say, darn it, I've told you how many times, right? You raise your voice, you scare your child, you startle them, you make them feel like they've done something wrong when really it was just a mistake, right? Like, and mistakes happen, right? Now, of course, this is going to be on a spectrum, right? I mean, that's for you to decide how you want to, kind of, sort of determine that level of what's a mistake and what's deliberate negligence for you and your child. But the point is that doing this practice, right? And again, even if you're just pausing for a couple of breaths, a couple of beats, just pausing helps you to get out of that, God, I told you, that's going to, again, when you look back on that, you say to yourself, oh gosh, it was just a spilled cereal. I didn't need to do all that. I made my kid feel horrible. I sent her to a room. I really shouldn't have done that. Now you're feeling an emotional downer, right? And you also did not do any favors for your relationship with your child, and you've just kind of made everything just, a little bit more complicated, So by doing this exercise, or even again just the pausing part, you're going to give yourself the power, as Viktor Frankl says, to choose your response. And in that power lies your growth and your freedom. Okay, now that's your growth and freedom as a parent, as a colleague, as a friend, as a spouse, as just a citizen of the world. If you have any questions, please let me know, okay? SBNRR, stop, breathe, notice, reflect, respond. If you have any questions about that or how to apply this practice in your life or other practices you'd like to learn, please hit me up. I have a ton of these little practices we can do that will help us to develop habits of responding versus reacting. Thanks for listening, everybody. I wish you well. I hope you have a great day, and I'll be back again tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.